One of the main reasons I do these must start and sit videos on Saturday mornings is because it gives us time to gather all the information on most teams' injury reports so we can make some informed decisions right before game time, guys. And I always come away glad that we did it on a Saturday. So today we're going through every single matchup in Week 10 fantasy football to find the must start and sit running backs for this week. And guys, I am so close to hitting 7,500 subscribers. And when I do, I'll be giving away a lot of these FFN hats right here for free. So go down there, drop a like on this video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support and help me get there. So let's go ahead and start going through these matchups this week. We've got the Colts and the Patriots taking on each other in Germany. This is not in New England. This is a Germany game. It's overseas. It will be played early on Sunday morning. So make sure your lineup is either set by tonight on Saturday night or tomorrow early morning before this game begins. And really, you've got to worry about a couple guys here. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor, I believe, is a must start this week. He was in my top 10, or top 12 of running backs this particular week in fantasy football. I think it's a fantastic situation. The matchup is great against the Patriots. The Patriots defense, they can't stop anybody right now. Jonathan Taylor also starting to separate himself a little bit from Zach Moss. And of course, we've already seen the big playability from him this year. Jonathan Taylor's a no-brainer in Germany. And then Ramondre Stevenson, I do believe, is a higher-end flex option. Ramondre Stevenson, what I will say and caution people is, yes, he did have a touchdown last week. He broke off a big run, actually. But you take that one run out, he had 8 carries other than that, and about 30 yards. So I'm just saying, be careful of this. We have not seen a big play from Ramondre Stevenson other than that last week. So just be a little careful. I still do think he's a good flex option. And then Zach Moss, I believe, is a good I think Zach Moss is a middle tier flex option right here. Because while, yes, Zach Moss was disappointing last week, and he did handle the least amount of carries and work overall last week, when you look at what he's done over this season and how efficient he's almost averaging 5 yards per carry. The guy has been incredible. I don't see the Colts just phasing him out entirely right now. So I do think that in a good matchup, Zach Moss can be played, but the same does not go for Zeke. You can't play Zeke. First of all, he doesn't get enough volume, and with the touches he's gotten, he's done nothing with them. It's been really bad for Zeke. I don't think that I can ever tell my audience right now that Zeke's a playable guy. Browns at Ravens, the next matchup here, I don't consider anybody a must start. I don't think anybody is, because here's the thing. This is a divisional matchup that has the lowest over-under of the week, and it's also because they're both fantastic defenses, and neither of them have a clear-cut running back one. So you've got 3 guys in flex territory, which I would say are relatively upper options. Jerome Ford, Kareem Hunt, they're back-to-back in my rankings this week, and I don't really care which one you prefer. Jerome Ford still leading the team in carries, but Kareem Hunt's been better recently. So I think that they're both playable. Just caution, this is a very tough matchup right here. I don't think that either of them are some tremendous start this week. Gus Edwards, 5 carries last week. Yes, he found the end zone twice, which just shows you how efficient the Ravens offense is as a whole. But I don't think you could use that as a blueprint and say, I could play him because it's a touchdown block. Past 2 weeks, sure it has. He's had 5 touchdowns over the past 2 weeks. But with 5 carries against the Browns defense, that worries me for sure. I think he's a more of a middle tier flex option. He was down in my rankings this week. Keaton Mitchell, I just can't tell my audience to play him right now. This was the first week last week where he got anywhere close to 10 touches. And he didn't even get 10 touches. So there's not enough there yet, especially against a better defense this week. I don't think it's going to be a situation where Keaton Mitchell just comes in and wows again. I personally just don't. I'm going to tell my audience to leave him on the bench this week. Same with Justice Hill. Justice Hill, you can honestly drop at this point if you haven't already. Packers and Steelers here. Next matchup. Again, I don't think anybody's must start in this game. Nobody in this game is a 20-touch type of guy week to week. Aaron Jones did get 20 touches last week, and he was really good with them. But there's a difference between playing the Rams defense and the Steelers defense. I'm not saying that the Steelers defense is the 85 Bears, right? Nobody's saying that. But the Rams defense is horrendous this year. Absolutely awful. So Aaron Jones, I think you could play him because of the fact that he got more touches last weekend. He's a big play threat. But I would not say go out of your way to play this guy over someone like a Jonathan Taylor, right? And then Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren, literally back-to-back my rankings this week. You could play either one of them, and you could put them in any order you want. Very similar to Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt, except it's actually harder to predict because these guys almost see the same amount of touches per week, but one of them finds the end zone one week and the other one finds it the next week. It's very hard, but the matchup is very good for the Pittsburgh Steelers running backs. And then A.J. Dillon, to me, I can't envision playing him or telling my audience to play him when he's taking on the Steelers defense and he's already relinquishing more touches to Aaron Jones. 49ers and Jaguars here. One of the best matchups of the week, and you play both of the running backs. Now, let's be clear about something right here. These are two of the top 3 running backs in fantasy football right now. I am not saying that both of these guys are going to have the top 2 finishes this week, though. And the reason I find it important to say that is because when we're talking about 2 of the top 3 options at the running back position, you can't sit them any week. It doesn't matter what the matchup is. The upside of these 2 guys is outrageously high. For that reason alone, you cannot put them on your bench. Travis Etienne or Christian McCaffrey might not have as great of a week. Christian McCaffrey's basically like as safe as it gets and as high upside as it gets because he finds the end zone every single week. But Travis Etienne has been fantastic as well. So bottom line, you do not sit either one of them. It's going to be a really entertaining football game to watch, period. End of story. And obviously, both of these guys are the 3 down bell cows on their team. You don't consider playing either other running back in these 2 offenses. Saints and Vikings here, the next matchup. I've got Alvin Kamara still in must start. Now, I did say in my running back rankings video this week, I said, what was the deal with Alvin Kamara last week? He had his lowest snap percentage on the field last week, and he only had 9 carries. Well, then when you look at the other running backs last week, Kendre Miller and Jamal Williams, they had a combined 4 or 5 carries. Either one of the 2. I can't remember off the top of my head. So they weren't getting more work either. It was just a pass-heavy game script. And Taysom Hill did run the ball the most, by the way. So start Taysom Hill. But aside from that, I do think that we have to start Alvin Kamara. I did not see any reason to indicate that this would continue to move forward, and I watched this situation pretty closely this week with Alvin Kamara. I don't see any cause for major alarm. I would continue to play Alvin Kamara very confidently against this Vikings defense. And Alexander Mattison, at this point, like, he's in the upper tier of flex options simply because of necessity. The Vikings offense has been just ravaged with injuries all over the place, and obviously Cam Akers tore his Achilles last week. That leaves Ty Chandler as the primary backup here, and I don't think that Ty Chandler is going to take meaningful volume away, and especially in a matchup versus the Saints, I don't want to think about another running back option. Alexander Madison's the only guy you can play, and just from a volume standpoint, I do think he's in the upper tier volume of flex guys. Ty Chandler, Jamal Williams, don't worry about them. I can understand holding on to Ty Chandler on your bench, but at this point, Jamal Williams to me is dead weight. I don't think he's carrying any value right now. I would actually personally drop Jamal Williams. Texans and Bengals here, the next matchup. Joe Mixon, fire him up. Fire up Joe Mixon. He has scored 2 of the past 2 weeks, and this offense just continues to look better and better. Now, I have said on videos this week, I have concerns right now about the Bengals offense because T. Higgins is already out and Jamar Chase is questionable. There's potential issues here in this Bengals offense. Joe Mixon, the way he's been playing, though, the way that Joe Burrow has been playing, taking the load, taking the pressure off of Joe Mixon, it only makes Joe Mixon better at this point in his career. He's not going to handle the offense. He needs Joe Burrow to be able to take pressure off of him, and he's doing exactly that. You play Joe Mixon against the Texans defense. Devin Singletary is do not get this twisted, he is a low-tier flex guy. Look at the Texans running backs this year. Neither one of them, Dameon Pierce nor Devin Singletary, has provided any sort of upside. It's not there. Texans do not have a balanced offense right now. It's all pass and no run. Devin Singletary, from a volume standpoint, that's the only reason he's in the lower tier of flexible options. And then obviously Dameon Pierce is out again. You go ahead and you sit Dameon Pierce. Titans and Buccaneers, next matchup. Derrick Henry, definitely must start. Like, I called him a top 4 running back this week. I think Derrick Henry is going to have a good stretch of games here, because look at Derrick Henry with Ryan Tannehill versus with Will Levis. His efficiency is up. His carries per game are up. They're getting some balance back on this offense in Tennessee, and they're taking on an opponent that can easily be beaten. Derrick Henry, to me, absolutely fire this guy up right now. And I think Rachaad White is on the border of must start or flex options. But the point being, you could play Rachaad White this week. Rachaad White, every single week, from a volume perspective, handles the majority of the workload in their backfield, and also sees plenty of targets as well. So I think that Rachaad White can easily be played. And then Tyjae Spears, guys, I will say this. He's in flex territory right now, but he's a lower tier flex guy. And honestly, I considered putting him on the sit category, because look at, again, what he did with Tannehill versus with Will Levis. Ever since Will Levis has came in, Tyjae Spears is not seeing 10 opportunities per game. His involvement is decreasing on this offense, and that is something we need to watch out for. He's an explosive guy. He's a big play threat. He's efficient. So I do think he could be played in a deep league, or if you've got bye weeks or injuries ravaging you. But I would not say go out of my way to play Tyjae Spears. And then everybody else, Buccaneers running backs are irrelevant. Lions and Chargers here. You start all 3 of these guys. All 3 of them, Austin Eckler, Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, fire them all up. Now, I'm not saying, again, they're all going to have fantastic weeks, but we know that both the Lions offense is extremely efficient running the ball. They've got a top 3 offensive line in the league, and Dave Montgomery back this week, he's been fantastic. And then Jahmyr Gibbs also extremely efficient and involved as a pass catcher. You don't sit the Lions running backs. And then obviously, Eckler is almost a lock to get a touchdown every week. It's absolutely outrageous. So Austin Eckler, fantastic right now, just from a touchdown perspective. But I will say, and I did say this in my running back rankings video, Austin Eckler is the type of guy this week I think could have a surprise bad week. The Lions running defense is pretty good, and Austin Eckler actually has not been very efficient running the ball lately. He hasn't been. He's averaging less than 4 yards per carry. I think there's potential issues here, but you do not sit Austin Eckler anytime. And then nobody else is relevant. Don't play Josh Kelly. It's not going to be worth it in this type of matchup. Falcons and Cardinals here. I've got to say, Bijan Robinson is getting harder and harder to convince people to play. I mean, honestly, and I'm just telling my audience this from a upside standpoint, which is what we play fantasy football for. The reason I continue to say play Bijan Robinson is because his upside as a big play threat is always going to be there. Bijan Robinson can get in the end zone. Bijan Robinson is averaging over 5 yards per carry. So if he takes on a good matchup, and this matchup screams, play me, I got to do it because this is a great player on our hands right now that is being severely capped, and Arthur Smith should be ashamed of himself. But I still do say that we can play Bijan Robinson relatively confidently. And then James Conner, questionable coming in this game. I have actually seen reports that he is leaning towards playing, and it's trending in the right direction. And if that's the case, you could play him. But if he does not play, you sit every other Cardinals running back. Amari DeMarcado is out again. Keontae Ingram, not worth it. This Cardinals offense, without James Conner, cannot run the ball. It's bad. And I think that Kyler Murray will change some things this week, open up the offense a little bit. But the bottom line is here, Keontae Ingram, if James Conner does not play, I'm not telling my audience to fire a guy like that up. But I will say consistently, you can lower tier flex Tyler Algier. Middle to lower tier flex option because of volume alone. Not efficient, not always find the end zone, but Tyler Algier is playable just from a volume perspective against a great matchup versus the Cardinals. Giants and Cowboys here. Tony Pollard, fire him up for sure. And I get it. It's been disappointing. Every single week, I feel like I have to come out here and explain this one a little bit because of how disappointing he is. I get the disappointment. I have him on a dynasty team. I've got him in best ball. I've got him in redraft leagues. I'm experiencing issues with Tony Pollard. You're not alone. Trust me on that one. But Tony Pollard against the Giants defense. Josh Jacobs just scored 2 touchdowns and 80-plus yards on them. Tony Pollard's going to be fine. He's going to be fine this week. And then Saquon Barkley, Listen, he's a middle tier starting option, and I've said it consistently on Saquon Barkley over the weeks. He's the entire offense, and he was the entire offense before Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor went down. Now they've got a Sopranos character at quarterback with Tommy DeVito. It's just not a good situation, and they've got the toughest matchup of the week in Dallas. So play Saquon because of volume, but if he doesn't do much, I would not tell you to be surprised, and everybody else is irrelevant. Commanders at Seahawks here. Kenneth Walker did have a little bit of a scare this week. He missed some practice time on Wednesday, but he's playing. He went back to practice on Thursday and Friday. Kenneth Walker, I've been saying all week, fire him up. I think this is a get-right game for Kenneth Walker. Past 2 games have been bad, but their past 2 opponents have also been tough. This game in Seattle, off a brutally embarrassing loss versus the Ravens, I think this is a get-right game for most of the options here, but especially for Kenneth Walker, taking on this Commanders defense that is just weakened over the season. Kenneth Walker is a must-start easily to me this week. And then Brian Robinson Jr. in the upper to middle tier flex options. Handles all the workload out of the backfield, but it's not much. That's the problem here. It's not much, and he's actually not efficient either. So you're basically depending on a touchdown. And this particular week, this is not an excellent matchup. Seahawks defense is not an excellent matchup. So I'm curious to see what he does. I'll be watching this game just because I want to see what happens with a lot of these options this week. But I think Brian Robinson Jr. still could be flexed just because of the touches that he gets. And then Zach Charbonnet, you can't start him yet, guys. He's not seeing close to 10 opportunities per game. I get it. We're getting excited about him. And I like this guy. I like Zach Charbonnet. But it's not there yet for him, guys. And I especially in this matchup, I think that Kenneth Walker is going to be able to take a lot of this success in fantasy football. And Antonio Gibson, as I've been saying for weeks now, if you still got him, I would just drop him. Dead weight for sure. Jets at Raiders, Sunday night game. Breece Hall, fire him up. Going against the worst rushing defense in the entire league. And that's not an opinion, that's a fact. The Raiders defense is worst against the run in the entire league. And Josh Jacobs, you play him as well, for sure. Handles all the workload. Coming off a great game. Nope, not gonna say that you should sit Josh Jacobs. What I will say though is that temper your expectations. They took on the New York Giants last week. They're taking on the New York Jets this week. This is an elite defense. I would not be surprised to see Josh Jacobs come back down to earth this week. But you always play Josh Jacobs. Of course you do. And then nobody else is relevant. Dalvin Cook, if you have him, still drop him. Dalvin Cook is totally worthless right now. And obviously no Raider running back is going to be relevant. Broncos and Bills here. The last matchup on Monday night. Nobody's must start. Now, I think that both of them are high-end flex options. James Cook was one spot above Javonte Williams in my running back rankings this week. And the only reason for it is because he's on an offense that is superior, I believe, even though they have struggled. I do believe the Bills' offense is superior. And additionally, I think that when you look at James Cook, the guy is averaging almost 5 yards per carry. He's not been the problem. The workload has been the problem. This is a game script. I actually do think he's going to see plenty of work. And when you look back to where James Cook has had the most success this year, it came in the first several games after that Jets game when they were blowing opponents out. And I actually think that the Bills are going to handle the Broncos pretty definitively on Monday night. They're coming off a really bad stretch. The Broncos are coming off a really high win 2 weeks ago against the Chiefs. I think the Bills are going to take it to the Broncos this week, and that could be very good for James Cook's workload, while acknowledging Javonte Williams, good flex option. Very good flex option. Carried the ball almost 30 times against the Chiefs, had 30 opportunities, found the end zone, and had over 100 all-purpose yards. Great game from Javonte Williams against a very good defense. Better than the Bills' defense. But Javonte Williams, like I said, I think game script is going to work against him this week. And just because he did it 1 week, this is the only week we've seen it from Javonte Williams. At least James Cook, we saw several weeks of it during the earlier portion of the season. Javonte Williams is the first time that we've really seen any sort of value here. And I think there's a chance that he relinquishes more touches again. Julio McLaughlin, while I do say McLaughlin, Perine, you sit them both, I'm just uneasy with the Broncos backfield right now. And then Latavius Murray, don't even consider it. So let me know what questions you need answered for Week 10 fantasy football. And if you want to see the must start and sit defenses for Week 10 fantasy football, click on this video right here.